Good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the cosmos, space, time, the universe. This is Rocken Larry Locken with Pleiadian Express Productions. Tonight on the show, we're going to talk a little bit about the Terra Papers from a kind of fresh perspective. And with me, I've got a really special guest with us, David Thomas Ryan. And David Thomas Ryan is got I'm getting kind of tongue-tied, folks. I had 14 teeth pulled in the last few weeks, so bear with me here. But he's got some really insightful information, I think, that resonates with the time we're in. So, Dave, all the way out on the East Coast, brother, how are you doing tonight?
Physically, I'm tired, but my spirit is fired.
Yeah, awesome, man. I mean, I saw what you posted in the event page, about the Terra Papers, and I'm like, okay, the time is ripe. Let's do it now. So why don't you, start from wherever you want to start at this, and just, discuss the information that you've gained, and, some of the knowledge and insight you have, and, you can take it any direction you want, brother. The floor is yours.
Okay. I'll start out with something in that post that refers to a marker. I guess what they were trying to do is they were trying to leave markers behind that there was a time in a history before the sun god of Ra. But I'm sure back in those times they were left on stones. But this story in and of itself serves as a marker that there was a history before the world as most people know it.
I think what caught my interest real quick was the first paragraph of what you sent me regarding that link between Earth humans and the Pleiadians. You maybe talk a little bit about that.
Okay. Prince Ea was considered to be a master geneticist. I don't know whether or not you recalled that piece there, but I sent this to you maybe a couple of days ago. It was about, I can't remember the title of the YouTube right off the top of my head, but it's like an introduction as to it's basically a message from the Pleiades. It's centered around that, and it went in discussion about how this planet was fought over, and there was a reference to the master geneticist, and Prince Ea was one of those. And as you notice in there, that he took some of his work back with him. I wouldn't say it's all of his work. He was just applying the Genesis sciences. And when you look at the name, Adamus, that's where I believe the term Adam comes from.
Yeah, totally.
And the Adapa, well, that came from Prince Ea's brother, Prince Enlil. Enlil looked at the Adapa as his pinnacle of what life should be, obeying and all this other stuff. But I believe Prince Ea had some sort of spiritual evolutionary moment that life exists in the universe for a reason. It doesn't exist to be controlled. It exists to evolve.
Right. If I could just interrupt for a second, Dave. When you say Prince Ea, are you talking about who some people consider Enki?
I think in the papers he is referred to as Enki.
Okay. Yeah, and Enlil would be his brother, and they have, of course, King Anu as the father. But yeah, brother, sure, go on.
Okay, and I believe in that respect, the Adamus he took with him versus the Adamus that were left behind on the Earth. And I for those that were left behind, I guess referring to us, our distant ancestors, they were literally put into a mind prison.
Like kind of the mental matrix, so to speak. And it brings up another question I'm thinking. The Adam and Eve story, Adam. Do you suppose that there might have been several versions of that? That there, that's what I'm thinking. There wasn't just one version. It took them a few times or several times to get it right.
Yeah, chances are he was doing lots of experimenting. Basically, Prince Ea was assigned to be the life developer of the region, of the whole solar system, and I guess he was involved in all forms of biological experimentation overall. I can only wonder how long did these individuals really live. They must have had. I get the impression of they must have had very massive, expansive lifetimes by our standards.
Oh yeah.
We're probably talking into maybe well into the thousands of years. Even that's probably an understatement.
How do you suppose that gold ties into it? Of course, they were here to mine for all our gold, and you get contradictory stories. Like, I've heard that they both used it for their atmosphere, and I've heard that they used it for a vitamin, a ground down vitamin. I mean, and it's funny when you think about it, gold is pretty, but it's really useless as a material on Earth. So there was really some reason why they needed a whole shitload of gold from our planet.
I'm only guessing some of the properties of gold. I've done some reading into Billy Meyer, UFO contact from the Pleiades, and I thought I saw a picture of all these ships, these different kinds of ships, and the materials that were used.
Yes.
I get the impression, I'm only guessing now, that gold is somehow used to travel interdimensionally.
Wow, you mean you're thinking that it somehow helps the ships maybe or their Merkabas? I mean, it helps them. I
Maybe
mean,
not just
yeah,
distance or time, but maybe even interdimensionally.
right, good point. Yeah, I mean, that sounds resonating to me, and I'm sure there were all these reasons we're thinking of. There's probably some truth to a little bit of all of it, but yeah, anyway, yeah. And it's really odd because the story really resonates, and I mean, you hear it time and time again from different cultures. And I'm reading right now the notes that you sent me. Um, this intergalactic war. It's just amazing. Yeah, I'm going through it right now, and of course, reading the different. Basically it was a hostile takeover of Earth, the way I'm looking at it at that point. It was a hostile takeover of Earth. Humanity's consciousness had completely dropped. I think the people that were left here, like you said, were put into a mind matrix prison. Their strands were cut off. Their helix strands were unplugged, and basically we were just used for slaves. And I think that's really kept on until today, don't you? To a point, the manipulation.
Yes, I believe it looks like the manipulation has reached its overall tipping point. I believe honestly that when you look at anything that's based on control and manipulation, um, there really is what I believe, no soul to it.
Yeah, exactly. That's a really, really good way to put it. And they do it in all sorts of forms. It's really a frequency type of a mind control, whether it's through television, advertising, the radio. We're kept in this time loop. It seems like we do the same thing every 20 years. It's just, yeah, and you know what I mean? We're dealing with a technology that's antiquated, and it's doled out to us, to keep us kind of stupid and keep us frustrated. Every time a new technology comes out, we take one step forward, two steps back, and there's a bug in it. And I mean, this stuff, I mean, man, if this was all on the up and up, we should have had the internet by the 70s, much less computers. The way I look at it, even maybe earlier.
Well, we're probably talking about what happened on this planet to be, you could say, a setback for the human race over here by, on a scale of thousands of years.
Oh, totally. Yeah, yeah, I would have to say so. Maybe even longer.
And I believe right now that everything that's going on in terms of the shift in consciousness is in response to what happened at that point so long ago.
Yeah, I do too. I really do believe that our bodies were left with these light-coated filaments that would activate at a certain point and be triggered at a certain point. And of course, it's spoke of by a lot of the greats, David Icke, Barbara Marciniak, Cryon, and it's pretty obvious to me that that's what's going on right now. You know what I mean? You could even try to be a skeptic and play devil's advocate, and everywhere you turn, you really can't. You know, you can't shake loose of this idea of what happened to us.
I would say now that what led me up to that point, when I look back at it now, everything was just purely synchronistic, as Ike even explained in his own works, that it's like a hand giving him pieces of a puzzle, and the puzzle is literally being put together in the most simplistic manner.
Yeah, totally. You know, it's funny with synchronicity. You'll come upon something, right? And it's like, okay, it's like you got 98 pieces of the puzzle, and you only need two more to put it together, and you're like, "God, there's just something missing." And then it's like, though, dude, when you get that other piece of the puzzle or whatever, or get another one, it's like, okay, oh yeah, duh. It's like so synchronistic and so resonating that it's like you already knew that, and basically you're just remembering what you already knew. And I'm looking too at some of the vicious shit these people did, these beings did. I mean, probably the pimping of women, starting a money system to keep people under control as opposed to a barter system. I mean, this was really kind of a sick, twisted, just a really strange kind of a sense of humor, twisted sickness these beings had, and really with their own agenda. Um, Speaking of that, it makes me think of a question. What can you talk a little bit maybe about your awakening? Have you always been awake, and do you know what maybe triggered it? Like, David, maybe reading a David Icke book, or maybe hearing something on the radio.
I would say my overall awakening, I would say um, it started a little bit in around the year 2010 when I started to dig into Jesse Ventura's conspiracy theories slowly. And but there's something else there too a little bit before that, and well, I would say it massively started from 2010 for roughly the last 5 years of my life overall, compared to Ike, who's been doing it for like at least 20, 25 years.
Yeah, he's been at it since the early 90s. I can remember hearing him on Coast to Coast a couple times in the 90s and thinking, whoa, man, this guy is really revolutionary. But my awakening happened in late 2010, too. I was part of that 2010 class. And you mentioned Jesse Ventura, how synchronistic. I met him a few times at my uncle's when I was really little. He wrestled out here in Oregon and got his start out here when he was a pro wrestler in the Portland territory. So yeah, yeah, exactly. Listening to Ike in the 90s was a trip because he was really fresh, really new, and man, he was just a controversial guy and really inspirational. But, I mean, when you have your awakening, it's different for everybody, but it just hits you in a moment, sometimes. And and back to the story about the Terra Papers. Have you ever listened to Robert Morningsky before?
I just a couple days ago I tried to get access to one of his videos. I only listened to it maybe a couple minutes, not even the introduction, but I did at least get to the YouTube of it. I still have to actually go through the 3-hour lecture.
Are you familiar at all with, when Prince Aya and Prince and Lil were down here, are you familiar with maybe how that hierarchy worked? I know.
Well,
Go ahead.
what I'm okay.
It's
Um,
relax, brother. It's okay.
I don't know how much you've actually read of the Terra Papers overall, but I wouldn't expect anyone to read them the first time to really digest all of the terms there, because they refer to Jupiter as Barbaru.
Right, I'm seeing that where different things were referred to as different words, and you kind of got to ad lib and take it from there. But yeah, I mean, just however you feel comfortable, drop some knowledge on it. Of course, I do want you to, because I want to get into that. I want to get into the Mars and the moon thing. But yeah, go ahead and anything that comes to your mind about the Terra Papers.
I'm beginning to wonder if George Lucas ever read the Terra Papers.
Well, I think he was consciously channeled from the Pleiadians, the original Star Wars movie, because I think it's a story of the Lyra and Orion wars of 1 billion years ago, where Lyra's planet was destroyed, one of them, and they fled to the Pleiades, a lot of them, and of course a lot of them stayed on city-sized motherships, and they fled and colonized the Pleiades. So, yeah, man, I would almost bet my life on it that, well, I would bet my life on it. I'd almost bet my kid's life on it, though, that that's exactly how it went down. But yeah, what are your thoughts on George Lucas?
Well, I, I get the impression he might have, somehow I came across some aspect of the Terra Papers, because it does mention in there that the Accors, they had Death Stars, planet-sized ships that could just wreak war anywhere, basically.
Is that why they called them Death Stars? I know this sounds stupid, but on my part, but yeah, I've heard that term. And is it a Death Star because it's dead, or is it a Death Star because they were ships
Because
of
maybe it
destruction?
wreaked death. Yeah, that's why. Um, I would say that these objects were so large that if you read the Terra Papers, that when there was the first battle between the rebels and the Assar Empire, um, um, the rebel leader captured one of these ships, and of course the king fled. King Anu, he fled, and he came back with a Death Star of his own, and there was a Death Star battle. And what happened was this: um, the rebel leader had control of one of the captured Death Stars, and what happened was, after there was this battle, of course, the flagship won, but the smaller Death Star, I believe, was hurled at the planet Uranus, and the impact was so great, it actually tilted the planet on its side. You ever notice when you look at the planet Uranus, the rings are vertical?
Yeah, I have noticed that actually. Kind of, now that you mention it. Wow. Okay.
And during that battle, the leader of the rebels was able to do so much damage to the major flagship, that the only thing left that that flagship did was this: it basically set itself on a crash course with Tiamat. And
Okay, now we're getting somewhere. Yes. Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
and the impact was so grave, of course, it wiped out all life on the surface of the planet, basically. Um, According to the story, no one got off the planet in time, and the impact was so great that supposedly it changed the orbit of the planet, and that's where it's believed as the reason why the asteroid belt exists between Mars and Jupiter.
Yeah, you know what? I think it'd be pretty hard to dispute that point at this stage of the game. I really think that's what happened too, and it would take a lot to convince me otherwise. But yeah.
Um, so the only life that was left, I think, was uh, it was on the planet Mars, but I think they called that planet Dokmu.
Okay.
And what occurred after the first rebellion was, well, it looked like the SST, the SSST Queens. That was the reptilian empire, and the Asars. They had a truce between each other. That the Asars would have the outer control of this passageway in the galaxy, while the queens, the reptilian queens, would have control of the inner. And the queens wanted all hostilities to cease immediately. And what King Anu did was, in secrecy, he persuaded the queens to join him in a battle against the rebel leader.
Yeah. What a silver-tongued devil. Yeah, I bet he did. I just bet he did. I bet he was a smooth talker.
So the basically the queens were not consistent with their commitment that they wanted hostilities to cease. And on top of that, it looked like King Anu was manipulating those individuals that acted rather deceptive.
Yeah, totally. And you know, it's funny when you were describing there the names like the SSATA, my mind started to go to Nazi Germany and maybe what kind of influence these beings or beings like this of this nature may have had in, helping the Nazis with their technological program. It just, I don't know why that came to my mind, but I don't know. Maybe there's something there with it.
Yeah, it was unfortunate because the rebel leader was totally left in the dark on that one. He was taken by surprise, and they basically ganged up on him. And as a result, Dokmu was totally destroyed. Mars. That's why supposedly Mars is really at that point has no life on it anymore. It was just destroyed.
It was totally nuked, and it was an air
Yeah.
nuke. It wasn't a land hit like we did in Hiroshima. It was a total destruction in the. It went off in the air and really, I mean, it decimated a lot. But as you can tell, their Sphinx held up through it. So it goes to show you how strong that was built. Yeah, you mentioned in what you sent me, I'm seeing something about screen memories, images designed to hide recollection of an event, and they were often implanted. Do you know anything about that? So
Well,
what I'm getting is that maybe they could still do this almost now. I mean, they can put false hologram memories in your brain. It's definitely something to consider.
I think what they're able to do is eradicate like memories, like mental memories, but I don't think they're able to eradicate memories on a spiritual level.
So maybe it's just that they're able to do it, say, like in this incarnation, things that, you know what I mean? Is that what you mean? Is that they're not on your spiritual Akash level, but they're able to maybe during a certain incarnation
Yeah,
wipe
you could say
out.
they want to be gods, really, but you know, but they don't have that kind of power. Even though they want to have that kind of power, but really they don't. They have the power to do it to the mind, but they don't have the power to do it to the soul.
Yeah, hence the mind manipulation, like you just said, the mind. Hence the mind manipulation, right? They had to really learn how to get coy and cunning and deceptive about manipulating people with words, with visual actions. And really, they don't have a lot of power. They may have a dimension, they may be up at one more dimension in higher 4D or whatever, but their power really doesn't exist past that. But yet, it's enough to have kept humanity under one frequency that all these eons of years. I mean, like we're dialed into one boring radio station, like Marciniak referred to in Bringers of the Dawn, and so they were able to do that. And we're starting to realize our own power, right, as humanity. and they're scared because we're so much more powerful than them, right? And yet you look back on it, it's like they really manipulated and screwed with our brains, and and as well as our our light body DNA. Yeah, this is really something that is not just a bunch of mumbo jumbo. I mean, it's told so many different with so many different ways, but it's the same story. And I think a lot of humanity is going to have a lot of trouble when they have to actually realize that this was the reality of what happened to us. Whereas people like you and I are like, okay, well, they'll be like, who knew? And we'll be like, oh, well, we knew. So I don't know. On a side note, what's your thought on the way people would react if, like, say, family yours or whatever, or friends that aren't awakened? I mean, how do you think that they would react with this being hit right between the eyes with that info?
I feel this. I have to wrap it up real fast. My dad wants to call it a night too. Over.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'll say this. I believe that the synchronicity that we're having, that is the expression of the spiritual intelligence.
Okay, sounds good. So I know you got to wrap it up. I'm going to ask you one last question. Do you think that Mars, the Moon, do you think all those planets in our solar system have had some kind of human life on it before, or may still have it on there?
Well, I believe, even according to those papers, that there are probably many different races that colonized on Mars.
Yeah, I do too, and I really do believe on the moon as well. Okay, brother. Well, thank you very much for coming on. And just real quick, if anybody's interested in, you know, um, knowing more about you, where can they find you? I know they can find you on Facebook. Just real quick before you go, tell everybody where they may be able to find you on the wonderful world of the internet.
I think for me, probably the best spot would be my Facebook.
Okay, on your timeline. All right. Okay. Well, brother, thank you so much for joining us, and I appreciate kind of this impromptu talk we had. And next time it might be a little more structured. Of course, we really don't do structure here. But real quick, I'm going to tell everybody where they can find me. Real quick, I'm going to just cut to the chase. If you wanted to go to a page called Pleiadian Groups and Pages, not the group, but Pleiadian Groups and Pages page, you can find out the 40 different pages or groups I've created and the 20 different pages, as well as our 2 channels on YouTube, and we're on Twitter now as well. So you can also find me at larry.locken.wix.com/Pleiadian Express Pro, and that'll link you to both our channels as well as our Facebook pages. So Dave, I'm really grateful that you came on, man, and I want to wish you namaste and have a great rest of your week. And I'm going to also send everybody off with a big dating game cosmic kiss. Mwah. And that's a wrap.
Namaste, fellow soldier.
Word.